Welcome to this episode of Feel Good Fridays with NECAT. My name is Shauna Brandmeier. I am a member of the NECAT board. Our goal for Feel Good Fridays is to highlight area nonprofits and all the good work that they're doing in the community, especially during the pandemic. Today's nonprofit is Gideon's Army. Gideon's Army is a community-based grassroots organization that works to design programs focused on restorative justice. They are currently the only organization in Nashville that focuses solely on dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline through social activism by children in the prison pipeline, their families, and their communities. They use research-based best practices combined with community outreach to build their restorative justice programs based on information and uses the program results to guide public policy. They also have a very intensive volunteer and community training, and they are out in the North Nashville community. They've been there for a while and they'll continue to do that. We're going to talk about some of their efforts this last year and some of their programs in the future. I'm happy to welcome Kate and T from Gideon's Army to Feel Good Friday. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you
so much.
Yeah, to get us started, kind of tell us about the mission and how the organization got started.
Absolutely. So I'll talk about how we got started first. So Rashida Fatuga, who is our founder, was a teacher with Metro Schools, and she had a student named Lamar Hughes. This is picture up on the screen right now. And Lamar was misbehaving in class one day, so she sent him down to the principal's office. And then later on, the principal came back down and said, hey, do you want to call the police and press charges? And Rashida was like, what? Wait a minute. No, that escalated way too quickly. And so something went off in her head that said, something is wrong with the way that this system is working for our children. So we have to do better. At the same time, Lamar was telling Rashida that he doesn't feel like he was going to live past the age of 18. So why bother? Why should he do anything differently? And why should he turn his behavior around if he's going to be killed anyway? And Rashida told him, no, that would never happen to you. You're going to be okay. Well, he actually did predict his own demise, and he was killed by gun violence at the age of 16. So at his funeral, Rashida decided that is when she was going to start Gideon's Army. She stood up in the pulpit and she said, I'm going to start an organization called Gideon's Army that's going to save our children, and I'm going to do it now. And so by the time she got into the foyer, she had 40 people there waiting for her to help her start this organization. And that is the way Gideon's Army started.
What a powerful message of taking a tragedy of this young man's death and putting purpose and community service behind it.
Absolutely.
So that's great founding of the organization.
Yep, and that has been her mission since then. That was over 10 years ago. And Rashida sees every child in North Nashville as her child. Like, they literally call her mama. So
it's true.
So very, very big part. It's not just an organization. This is who she is, period. Our mission is to eliminate the root causes of prison pipeline and to save our children from death and incarceration and guide them on a secure path to success. Gideon's Army has led the movement for restorative justice in Nashville. We've been behind the integration of restorative justice in our schools, in juvenile court, in community court, and in police accountability. So Gideon's Army creates innovative programs that promote public health approach to violence and integrating best practice models based on the 3 stages of violence prevention and intervention. We also do trauma-informed care, adolescent neuroscience, which also includes socio-emotional learning, and strategies for building collective efficacy.
So kind of talk to us about projects, specifically the one that's on the screen about the Driving While Black report and how that came about and how you've utilized that report in the community, especially with elected officials.
Absolutely. So the report actually came out in 2016. It was around the time when there was a lot of police brutality and murders and a lot of problems going on across the country. I believe that's the year that Philando Castile was murdered. We had Alton Sterling, we had Trayvon a few years before that. And so we had a lot of people in the community that was like, wait a minute, what is going on? We really have to tell the story, but we also have to show the data behind it. A lot of times you can tell a person a personal story and they still don't believe you. They need to see the numbers. And the other way around, you can show people numbers and then they still need to see a personal story to back up the numbers. Well, we felt like we had to do both. And so we had some volunteers, some people from Vanderbilt that would help us do the research, put this program and this report together. The city actually decided, hey, we don't know if that's true, so we're going to do our own report. Well, they did. They got a consulting firm, paid a pretty penny for it to come in and do a report only to find exactly what we found, that there is widespread racial profiling in Metro Police in Nashville. We used that report to back up what we already know is true. Like, we didn't need it for proof. We already knew that this was an issue because, number one, we live and breathe it every day. We have children that we're afraid to leave the house because we don't want them to be profiled, harassed, or killed by police. So we already knew that this was a real issue, but we wanted to make sure we had the data and the statistics to back up what we already knew to be true, so that when we're in the room with the mayor or city council or any other community leaders across the city, we'll be able to say, yes, this happened to this child and this person, but here are the numbers to show that it's going to happen again if we don't do something about it now.
And then talk about your advocacy as well with the Community Oversight Board and some other things you have listed here on the screen.
Sure, yeah, we were one of the biggest advocates for creating the Community Oversight Board in the community. And we were the first to bring comprehensive restorative justice to Nashville. We also view violence as a communicable disease, which is very ironic right now, given that the whole world is going through a global pandemic. But we've always said that violence moves like a disease. It clusters, it's contagious, it spreads. It's something that needs to be addressed like a public health crisis. And that's the way that we approach it as well, with our violence interruption program, our trauma response, and restorative justice programs. We also are now the leading disaster recovery team in Nashville, especially for North Nashville. After the tornado, we were one of the first organizations on the ground, actually the first organization on the ground in North Nashville. Within 30 minutes of that tornado hitting, my phone started buzzing like crazy. And I was like, what is going on? My team was already on the streets of North Nashville passing out flashlights and helping people. And so for us, it just really, really changed the game, because now all of the spotlight was on the great work that we were already doing. People were like, wait a minute, where did Gideon's Army come from? We didn't come from anywhere. We were already here. We were already doing this work. It's just that now we have your attention because a disaster has struck. And it's a shame that it took a disaster for that to happen. But guess what? Everything happens for a reason. And I'm just glad that we were ready to be able to rise to the occasion.
And Kate, kind of talk about those efforts. Also, the immediate, the midterm, I will say, needs of the community, and also the long-term needs that Gideon's Army has provided and will provide for the people of North Nashville and the community.
Sure. So, I mean, the immediate needs are really securing our people, right? Services, anything from food, tarping a roof, getting somebody's car, windows busted in, a lot of debris cleanup, right? A lot of distribution of items, household goods, etc., right? A lot of running to the pharmacy to get somebody's prescription because they lost everything. They don't have their wallet, they don't have anything, lost all of their medication. We had a really, really enormous turnout during the tornado recovery, and we
lost your sound, Kate.
Like T was saying, I mean, people were on the ground. I remember watching LT, one of our violence interrupters, on live on Facebook, as the tornado's passing through the city, right? And so really our response was, like T said, we were already here doing the work, right? We already had those relationships with other community partners who maybe had something that we didn't, and we could partner up. We had a total of 5 partner locations, the largest overall being at the Magruder Center here, just across the street from where I'm sitting. And I think really what became so important to us was that we were serving people exactly the way that they needed to be served, right? That their needs were being met, and that our volunteers were educated and knowledgeable about how to be impactful, right? They were educated and knowledgeable about what is needed, not what necessarily you think is needed or your intention behind your work, right? We had a lot of people And some people left because they came wanting to do a very specific thing. I want to clean up debris. Well, that's already taken. You know what I mean? We don't need people doing that right now. We need that. So well, then they would leave, right? But we were just dedicated and committed to making sure that we were prioritizing the needs of North Nashville, right? During that recovery. And just so, I mean,
I was going to ask about that because I remember seeing on social media and on the news, you guys put out a need list of these are the items we need donated. This is what the community needs right now. Kind of talk about how you organized all that, because there was a lot of energy at first, which is great. But how do you kind of harness that and get it in the right direction to where it's what people need and it's impactful for them?
Sure. So like you said, I mean, in the beginning, it was very clear we were getting donations. I mean, we had literally warehouses full of water, right? We did not need any more water, right? We needed baby formula, we needed blankets, we needed things to keep people warm. And so, keep in mind, this was March, it was still very chilly. And so in the beginning, it really was a lot of just like posting those basic needs. And then over time, it became building relationships with committed volunteers, right? People who are committed to our cause, people who are committed to the long-term work of supporting Gideon's Army, which is all of those things, right, that T went through. It's not just tornado recovery by any means, right? The reason we were so impactful with the tornado is because we had all of these other existing programs, right? And so it was really
you
about
utilized your infrastructure.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
And we don't have all of the bureaucracy and the red tape that a lot of other, even larger organizations might have. I worked for American Red Cross, which is the leading global disaster recovery organization in the world. And it wasn't as seamless as it was working with Gideon's Army after this tornado. Like, I would have people that would have to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get a check for a light bill or to get clothes for their children or school uniforms after Katrina. But if someone was to call me right now and requested baby formula or clothing or whatever from Gideon's Army, I could get that to them within hours, like today. And so for me, I think that was a big part of why we were able to do what we did after the tornado and even after COVID-19 is because we were already doing this. One thing that we know how to do well is take care of our people. So that's something that we were already doing. What really made it come to fruition the way that it did after the tornado was the volunteers that showed up. I mean, hundreds of people. Like, I remember standing in Magruder parking lot just looking around completely in awe because I couldn't believe that there were people still showing up even though we already had a parking lot full of people. So it's the volunteers, and it's people like Kate that stepped up and trained the volunteers. She had an amazing 7-minute training that she did, but it worked and we got people there. And as we came out of triage, I always call the first few weeks after the tornado kind of triage. But after we came out of that, we moved into more of a case management system where we would take on a case-by-case basis. We built a disaster recovery website so people could make requests for what they needed. And some of the numbers of what we accomplished are up on the screen. We touched a minimum of 31,000 individuals across the city after that. And then when COVID happened, I didn't know. I thought COVID was gonna come and shut us down. And I said, Kate, are we still gonna deliver food? And she was like, hell yeah, of course we're still gonna deliver food. And so it's that spirit, it's that passion, it's that no, we're not gonna quit. We're always gonna be here for the people of North Nashville, no matter what. That was the way that Rashida did it before the tornado, so it wasn't going to change after.
No.
You kept your mission in focus.
Yes, and I just really want to sort of point out one of the specific things that T says, because he said, when T says that we served at least 31,000 people, that's more people than currently live in North Nashville. So we were at some points supporting people as far as Donaldson and Hermitage. Like, real talk, we had people calling us on our personal cell phones like, we don't have any food out here. And I said, well, if we have leftover, I'll give you a call around 7 or something. And I'd ask for a volunteer who stays out in that neighborhood. Will you drop these at this church on the way out? I mean, especially in the immediate weeks, we were supporting anybody who needed it. And just like she said, when COVID hit, my response was like, we're still going to do it. We just got to find a way to do it that's safe. It wasn't that we weren't going to do it. We just had to go from people come to us to we deliver into the community, and we knock on your door, leave it on your stoop, step back, wear our masks, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so that would be a lot for one organization in 1 year. But in true 2020 fashion, there was a lot more going on in 2020. Talk to us also about your advocacy with systemic of educating people and organizations and political leaders around systemic racism, because it has been something that has been highlighted in 2020, but it has always been an issue, and it has always been part of our community that we need to work on this. Talk about how your efforts, even with Driving While Black and all of your efforts before 2020, kind of talk about your efforts now with that being in the news so much now.
Kate?
Sure, yeah. There was heightened visibility, to say the least, of systemic racism in a mainstream way. And I think that, again, because we had been doing this work, we knew what to do. We knew what the steps were, right? We had those relationships. We're community organizers, right? And so, of course, we participated in some of the initial marches, but really we have sort of focused on, like you said, creating that systemic change, right? So we are in the Nashville People's Budget Coalition and the Black Nashville Assembly, right? We're advocating for the divestment of money from the police, MNPD, to community services, right? Including Gideon's Army, including many other programs. And so really what across the spectrum, what we're trying to do is wrap our arms and like invisible arms around North Nashville, right? Like, yes, we're providing those services, those daily services. Yes, we're doing the work to decrease the violence in North Nashville. We're doing the work of restorative justice. Even within our volunteer programs, I make sure that our volunteers are still moving through the world in the same way. And we are doing the work to shift systems of oppression so that these systems these challenges don't keep happening. I always tell people, like, I don't want my kids to have to do what I do, because that means that we have the same problems, right? I want it to be a different problem. I want this particular job. It doesn't mean that we won't need community supports. It doesn't mean that we won't have Gideon's Army. It means that the exact work that we're doing now, I want it to not be needed. And we're moving on to something different, right? Something
we're
even
moving on
greater.
to the next problem. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that a huge part of our efforts to end systemic racism and oppression, specifically in North Nashville, our challenge is funding. So for example, pure violence, the model calls for 12 violence interrupters in our zip code for the square, not square footage, but for the miles around North Nashville, it requires 12 violence interrupters. For the past 2 years, we only had 5, but we were still able to reduce violence in North Nashville by 7%. Actually, last year it was the only zip code in Nashville that had a reduction in violence. So if we can make an impact with 5 when we really are supposed to have 12, imagine what we could do with the full 12. And if we had the funding to hire 5 case managers and to hire 3 more trauma coordinators. And our mission and our goal is to really show that this program works. And if we can do that on a shoestring budget, imagine what would happen if we had a fraction of what the law enforcement budget has. So we're not about abolishing or getting rid of the police, but we do want people to understand that police should not have to be mental health counselors. They should not have to be domestic abuse counselors. If anything, we're pro-police because we want them to be able to do the job that they're meant to do. They're not meant to go and break up fights of families and provide diapers or provide mental health services. Mm-hmm. That is something that community organizations and people that are skilled in those things should be able to do. But if there's no funding to be able to do that, then how can we truly serve the community? And so for us, it's about proving that the programming works and that the system works for us. And if we can prove that, then we can expand our programming across the state. You know, so we're starting in North Nashville, but we really hope that when we show the progress that we can make and the change that we can facilitate in North Nashville, then that will open people's eyes in other parts of the state to say, wait a minute, if they can do it there, they can do it anywhere.
Yeah, have a model that you can then replicate. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about how you work with schools on this issue of school to pipeline, systemic racism. You know, how do you break that, especially with the next generation? How do we stop doing this in essence?
Yeah, well, when we're in schools, we're not necessarily working with our children to make them anti-racist because they're Black children.
Right.
So
right.
We're in the schools.
How do you work with their administration and the teachers and
when we're in
all of the community that surrounds those children?
Yeah, when we're in the schools though, we're focusing on making sure the children aren't getting punitive discipline for things that are beyond their control. And so a lot of
Right.
students are at school hungry. They're at school without clothes. There was a little girl when I was at McKissick that got kicked out of class and was about to be suspended because she didn't want to take off her hood. Well, she didn't want to take off her hoodie because nobody was there to comb her hair that morning at the house. So she was embarrassed about her house. And this was a child that was about to be suspended for something that was an easy fix because they sent to us. I took her hair down, I put it in a ponytail, I put some lip gloss on her, she went back to class. The teachers are not able to always do that. And so when we're in the schools, we're really focused on empowering our children, making sure that they're not alone, making sure that they're not being suspended or expelled for something that could be a solution that we could find right there in the classroom. We're doing healing circles, restorative justice circles, and we're making sure to build relationship and trust with the students, because that is where it all starts. Because when there is a real conflict or problem, they'll come to us instead of retaliating or having something violent happen or going to a gang or going to drugs. They'll say, wait a minute, Mr. Mike True just did a meditation circle with me the other day. I want to talk to him so that, because I feel like I'm gonna do something bad. That's what we do.
And he knows you and they trust you. And they know to bring, when those issues come up, they know that there's a trusted group and organization that can help them. And that's important. You've got to be there beforehand.
Absolutely. That's the cornerstone of what we do, because if we can uplift these children in the schools before the system gets them, then that changes everything. That breaks generational cycles of incarceration, violence, and trauma in those families, and we can really help those children. So much so that the school foundation, Nashville Public Schools Foundation, gave us an award for Inspiring Innovation Award this year for the work that we do in schools. So.
Congratulations. So kind of tell us, what's on the horizon for 2021 for Gideon's Army?
Okay, well, we have several programs and projects. So the first thing I want to talk about is Gid City. That's where Kate is at right now. Gid City is our store, free store. People can come and shop for free. So they will make an appointment because of COVID. They can't just show up. But if they make an appointment and let her know in advance, she will be there. She's there every Tuesday and Saturday. And they come in there and they basically shop for free. And Kate, can you tell them about any donations and stuff that you still might need in the new year going into January?
Absolutely. We're going to be leveling up our free store. Right now, we've turned it into the Out North Pole. But starting the beginning of the new year, we are going to be leveling up even more here at the free store. People can make appointments to come shop. And if people want to drop donations, we are asking that they do so on Tuesdays and Saturdays from 10 to 6. That's the time that we're here. Of course, people can always email me at volunteer@onearmyunited.org. And if they have a large donation or they need to schedule a pickup, we can do that as well. I will say that at this moment, we're asking folks to either check our social media or send me an email to see what our current needs are, because we're very blessed in that we have a lot of clothing and don't have any place to put it. Because of COVID-19, we are doing appointments so we don't move through the clothes super quickly. So like in the winter, we're going to be asking mostly for winter clothing, hats, mittens, etc., so that we can keep our people warm.
Another project that we're doing, community economics, is something that's a big deal for us. So we just purchased this summer the former MH Market in North Nashville, in a community that was formerly a food desert. But now we're going to open that store. That is going to be one of our biggest projects next in this year, because this is on in 2021. But Chef Mike True is an international chef. He's also a community engagement coordinator with us and a violence interrupter. He's vegan, so he's going to be doing some healthy meals there at the store. I told him, throw some bacon in there sometimes for me, please. But but yes, so the store is, I think we're calling it Liberate 208 for Liberate 37208. Is going to be an amazing opportunity, because we can hire people to work at the store. We can have meetings at the store. We can have people come out and do Sunday dinners at the store. So any support and anything people want to do to get involved in that, I would highly recommend that. We are also doing a lot of community engagement events in 2021. So we're gonna, hopefully, if COVID subsides and the vaccine and all of that goes well, but we did this event that you see here this year because the community craves to be together. The community wants to get together. The community engagement is a huge piece of success for us, because the more people are able to bond and connect and there's a community unity, people are less likely to get in trouble or do things that could cause them or their families harm. And then we are able to feed the community when we have those events. And we found that if people are not hungry, then they're less likely to use drugs. They're less likely to go to jail. They're less likely to have these issues if they're fed. And so feeding the community and having these community engagement events are always going to be something that's very a top priority for us in 2021.
So if people in the community wanted, in all of Nashville and Middle Tennessee, wanted to find out more information about Gideon's Army, volunteer opportunities, what's your website? How do they find you?
We have rebuildnorthnashville.com. That is our recovery website, but we also have GideonsArmyUnited.org, which is our main organizational website. One of them is very pretty and professional and conservative and will get you all the information that you need. And one of them is more grassroots oriented and about the day-to-day things that are going on the ground. And I'm working on combining them so we'll have one site. But I definitely think they should visit the website. Follow us on social media because that is when real-time information is going out. So follow us at Gideon's Army United to have the most up-to-date and recent information there.
Yes,
That's
and our
great.
next volunteer trainings in January on the 7th.
All right. So I would encourage everybody, I want to thank Kate and T for joining us on our NECAT episode of Feel Good Friday. Encourage everybody to go to our social media page, Gideon's Army, look them up. Wanted to particularly mention our GoFundMe page. So all of next week after this airs on our channels, we are raising money through our GoFundMe page and we are splitting it 50-50 with Gideon's Army and NECAT. So support our nonprofits in Nashville, especially in 2020. There's a lot of innovation and a lot of passion. And I think it's a great highlight of a Feel Good Friday and a Feel Good organization. So thank you to you both for joining us today.